Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Bank Shop Breakdown. We're going to go over 5 college basketball games for Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your college basketball plays in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can always find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the 5 games for Wednesday, November 16th. First up, we see a fantastic matchup on paper between number 2 Gonzaga and number 11 Texas. And Gonzaga's number 3 and KenPom, Texas number 2. The Longhorns are laying a point in this game at home, a total of 144.5. It's going to be a 9:30 Eastern start time on ESPN2. Now, this is going to be an interesting game. You got 2 of the top 15 teams in the nation, according to the AP polls. Like I mentioned, top 3 teams in KenPom. And Gonzaga's number 1 in adjusted offensive efficiency. Texas is number 1 in adjusted defensive efficiency. So we got offense versus defense. Both teams pretty good on the other side as well. Gonzaga's number 14 defensively. Texas number 12 on the offensive side. But, we hear a lot of criticism, usually each year, from Gonzaga opponents saying, Gonzaga plays in a West Coast conference that's not really strong. BYU and St. Mary's, whoop-de-doo. But this year, they went out and scheduled a very, very tough non-conference schedule. Gonzaga did. They already played Michigan State at neutral site. They go on the road to Texas for this game. Then you go back home on Sunday to play Kentucky, very tough team there. Then in a couple weeks, you play Baylor at a neutral site. And then further down the road, you play Alabama on a semi-road game. So very tough non-conference schedule this year. Then you add into the fact that the few tough games in their conference against teams like BYU and St. Mary's. So not going to be an easy schedule and not going to be an easy game right here for Gonzaga. And you know what? We saw some issues with Gonzaga in that game against Michigan State. They didn't have the best shooting performance, only 4 of 18 from 3. They only put up 64 points, which we don't see Gonzaga do very often. Usually a team that's scoring in the 80s, even against some of the tougher teams in the nation. And on the road here against a very good defense, a good rebounding team, and just a very talented team in general, I don't really like the Zags' chances in this one. I think Texas is favored for a good reason. I like the experience they have. They bring back Timmy Allen. They bring back Marcus Carr. They're going to be a very good defensive team under Chris Beard. So, I think Texas just has a little bit too much. And, I just didn't love the way that Gonzaga looked in that Michigan State game. I don't want to overreact to any single performance like I mentioned in yesterday's video. But with Texas being the home team and having the better defense, in my opinion, I'm going to lean with the Longhorns here on the money line in this fantastic matchup. Next up, we see Iowa taking on Seton Hall. It's going to be a 7:30 Eastern start time on Fox Sports 1. Iowa is a small favorite right now on the road, laying at 1.5 points, and the total's at 147. It should be another great game for Wednesday's card, but I'm going to lean towards Iowa here on the money line, even though I do think that Seton Hall's played the tougher schedule so far, and I do think they are the better defensive team, and they are at home here, so a little bit of a home court advantage, but I think Iowa's offense just really tough to beat right now. Number 5 in adjusted offensive efficiency. They don't turn the ball over. They're a very good shooting team. They play very fast-paced, and I think that fast-paced kind of up-tempo offensive style just too much for Seton Hall to handle in this game. Seton Hall's a very good defensive team. They're a good rebounding team on the offensive side. Not the greatest defensive rebounding team. We've seen that in the first couple of games, and we're also seeing Seton Hall struggle badly when it comes to turnovers. In that game against Monmouth, even though Seton Hall won it pretty handily, they had 20 turnovers in that game offensively. Not what you want to see against a team like Monmouth that was missing a lot of production from last year's team. Then you play St. Peter's, a pretty good defensive team, but you still have 16 turnovers in that one. So I do worry about that. Iowa's offense, like I said, is very fast-paced. The defense likes to work pretty fast as well, and they're already in the top 50 in turnover percentage defensively to start the season. If they're able to force those turnovers, get those fast break points, it's going to give them a big advantage in this game. It's going to be a tough environment for Iowa, but I do think this is an experienced team. It's played in very tough environments last year and years prior. I think they'll be ready for this test. I'm going to take the Iowa Hawkeyes here on the money line. Next up, we see Cincinnati taking on Northern Kentucky. This is going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time on ESPN+. We're going to see Cincinnati as a 6.5-point favorite. Totals at 137. It's not often you're going to see a team like Northern Kentucky out of the Horizon League hosting an American team, but here we are with Cincinnati traveling to the North and taking on NKU. NKU's only had one game against a Division I opponent, and that was against Kent State in their opener, a 79-57 loss. Now, it was an ugly loss. You don't want to lose any game by 20-plus points, but you got to look at the numbers shooting from both teams in that game. It was a miserable night shooting the basketball for Northern Kentucky and an unbelievable night for Kent State. Kent State was 13 of 24, 54% from three. Sincere Carey was 5 of 7. He's one of the best shooters really in the MAC conference, but really in the country in general. So no surprise there. But Northern Kentucky themselves, 5 of 27 from three, 18%. They struggled in their 2-point field goals as well. So they had no chance. If you're gonna have shooting performances like that, you're not gonna win the game, even if you are great on the offensive glass, which Northern Kentucky was. They had 19 offensive rebounds compared to 9 for Kent State. And even if you force a million turnovers, if you can't shoot the basketball better than 25% from three, you basically shouldn't even try. But I do think in this game we're going to see some value now because of that bad shooting performance from MKU and because of a good start for Cincinnati, 3-0 to start the year, 2-0 versus D1 opponents. I think there's some value with the home team in NKU. This is going to be a big game for this program. I do expect a pretty loud gym. Northern Kentucky not necessarily known for a crazy home court advantage, but when you bring in a school like Cincinnati, a top 100 team in Ken Pom, an AAC team like I mentioned, the students are definitely going to show up for a game like that, and I do think that's going to help NKU on both sides of the ball. But overall, I do like this NKU roster. I like the fact that they were strong on the glass in that game against Kent State. They looked pretty good in their second game against the subdivision school in Cincinnati Claremont, but I think Northern Kentucky is going to be able to compete in this game down the stretch. Cincinnati, I'm not really sold on their offense. I think they've got some efficient shooters, but I don't know if it could be a consistent result for 40 minutes on the road. This is their first road game of the season. Like I mentioned, going to be a tough environment in my opinion. I don't trust their shooters all the way in this game. I do think Northern Kentucky has the advantage on the glass, so give me the Northern Kentucky Norse getting those 6.5 points at home in this one. In our next game, we see Hampton taking on East Carolina. The Pirates laying 10.5 points in this game. Totals at 143.5. This is also a 7 o'clock Eastern start time on ESPN+. Hampton had a rough start to the season. Their first game against James Madison on the road, 106-58. James Madison was 11 of 20 from three, 55% in that one, 29 of 46 in their 2-point field goals, so that's 63%. It was just a dominant shooting performance from James Madison in that game, but Hampton bounced back in a nice way against a subdivision school, an 89-60 victory. So 1-1 on the season, but still looking for their first Division I win of the year. I don't think they're going to get the win in this game, but I do think they are going to cover this number. I think this is just too many points for East Carolina to lay. I know they're off to a good start, 2-0 themselves, both against Division I schools in Mercer and Presbyterian, but I was not really big on this East Carolina team going into the season. I don't really love the roster on paper. Not really a consistent offense that I see, at least. I don't think they're going to be able to continue their hot shooting performances like we've seen in the first couple of games, especially that performance in the second half against Mercer. It was a big-time comeback that they needed. They really struggled at the beginning of that game. It looked like Mercer was going to pull away from it, but they just got red hot from three. They ended the night 10 of 29. East Carolina did from three-point range. Most of those made threes in the second half, but I just don't think you're going to be able to rely on that game after game. And against a pretty experienced backcourt for Hampton, I think the Pirates can at least compete in this one. If not, give themselves a chance to win it outright in the end. So I'm going to take those points with Hampton, the Pirates here, getting double digits on the road. Next up, we see our final game for Wednesday's card, San Francisco taking on Fresno State. This is a pretty sneaky good game in my opinion. Two solid programs. We're going to see the line right now is a pick 'em, so no team is favored in this game, and I think that's for good reason. Pretty close matchup on paper. The total right now is at 135.5. We're going to see a 10 o'clock Eastern start time, so a late night game in this one. San Francisco is 3-0 to start the year. They're 2-0 against Division I schools. They look solid on both sides of the ball, but not really in love with their defense. They are ranked outside the top 75 in adjusted defensive efficiency, and they're struggling in terms of defending the three-point shot, ranked 260th in the nation to start the year. They're also struggling in the turnover department, which is a big thing that I worry about in this particular game, as Fresno State, although they haven't started the season strong in the turnover department defensively, this was a team that last year was able to force plenty of turnovers on the defensive end. They were also a very strong rebounding team. Now they do lose Orlando Robinson from last year's roster, who was a big part of that rebounding effort, but I still like Fresno State's defense on paper. Their offense hasn't had a great start to the season, but I do think that at home here, I do tend to take the home dog or the home team, in a line like this where it's a pick 'em when they are a good defensive team. And Fresno State checks those boxes. A pretty good home court advantage and a very good defensive team. San Francisco in a tough travel spot in this one, in my opinion, and I don't really love this matchup for them. I like San Francisco this season. I think they're going to be able to maybe pull off a couple of upsets in conference play this year in that WCC conference. But in this game on the road against a Mountain West opponent, I don't really like their chances. Give me Fresno State on the money line to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday, November 16th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your college plays in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can always find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.